Obi Wan Kenobi is one of the main characters in the Star Wars universe and is a beloved character by many fans. He's personally my favorite Jedi and my favorite Star Wars character of all time, and since Disney is starting to do anthology films, which are Star Wars films that focus on certain events or certain characters, there's been a lot of rumors about there possibly being an Obi Wan Kenobi spin off anthology film. So in this video, I'm just going to do just kind of recap why we should get an Obi Wan Kenobi anthology film. So I'll probably do a few more of these in the future about other characters I think should get anthology films, so I'm just going to start off with Obi-Wan. Now, some would argue that we don't need an Obi-Wan Kenobi anthology film because we've basically seen his whole life. We've seen him from when he was a young Padawan in Episode 1 all the way until he was a Force Ghost in Episode 6, helping out Luke and guiding him. So we literally saw him from when he was kind of a young man to after death when he was a ghost. I mean, we even hear his voice in Episode 7. Episode 7, The Force Awakens, is the only film so far that he hasn't appeared in, but we do actually hear his voice, so we even hear him 30 years after the Battle of Endor. But my argument to that would be that there's a huge chunk of Obi-Wan's life that we don't actually see him. And this is 19 years, the 19 years that is between Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and Episode 4, A New Hope. Sure, there's a lot of gaps between the different episodes, like the 10-year gap between Episode 1 and 2, and stuff like that, maybe the 5-year gap between Episode 2 and 3. However, this is the most important because those other gaps, there isn't really that much that happens, and we kind of know what happens. Basically, Obi-Wan's training Anakin between Episode 1 and 2, and between Episode 2 and 3, he's fighting in the Clone Wars, and we do actually see him in the Clone Wars TV series, so that's basically covered, but we don't exactly know what's happening between Episode 3 and 4. There is a comic being released about Obi-Wan Kenobi on Tatooine, his exile on Tatooine, between Episode 3 and 4, which would essentially be where this movie takes place, is on Tatooine, and I think they could kind of roughly base the movie after these comics, because these comics are canon. They're currently coming out now, so they aren't Legends material, they actually are canon. So I think they could kind of make a movie version of that and kind of roughly base it on that comic, and it would be really interesting because we could see what happens between Episode 3 and 4, because Obi-Wan Kenobi looks significantly older in Episode 4, and he's actually only in his mid-50s. So is that stress? I know that the fact that there are two suns on Tatooine means that it's really harsh on your skin, which makes you look a bit older. However, the reason he has gray hair, that might be because of stress, stuff like that. And what did he do for 19 years? It must have been hard for a Jedi Master to adjust to just guarding Luke for like 2 decades, not doing anything. So I'm sure he actually did do some exciting stuff on Tatooine. Maybe he left Tatooine to go on like a little adventure a few times. Maybe there's emergency stuff like that. And I'd really like to see, what all plays out on Tatooine. I think it'd be really cool if maybe he takes an apprentice and trains them, not exactly as a Jedi, just maybe like a bounty hunter type. I'd really like to see a Force-sensitive bounty hunter, something like that, and he trains them to use a lightsaber. Stuff like that. So he has an apprentice, but they're not exactly a Jedi. I think that'd be really cool for him to have a third apprentice that would be in between Anakin and Luke. Something like that would be interesting. And I think maybe if he fought maybe like the early Knights of Ren, whoever that turns out to be, the Inquisitors or someone else, maybe he could fight Darth Maul. Darth Maul is returning in Rebels. And maybe he somehow comes onto Tatooine, and we finally get to see Obi-Wan actually kill Darth Maul like he did in Episode 1, before Darth Maul was resurrected. So that would all be very interesting, and it would be cool to see him try to adjust to Tatooine, and then kind of go out on some adventures like that. Maybe Yoda would call to him, and he'd have to, go and do something in another system, at another planet. And then, of course, training, maybe a bounty bounty hunter type in the ways of the Force. That'd be cool. And then fighting Darth Maul. I think Darth Maul could be the main enemy of this movie. He can kind of be behind everything, secretly trying to get revenge on Obi Wan Kenobi for cutting him in half. Stuff like that. And I'd also like to see Obi-Wan's training to become a Force Ghost, because of course Yoda sent training with him on Tatooine. That's really how Yoda is Obi-Wan's master. If you've ever wondered why Obi-Wan refers to Yoda as his master in the original trilogy, obviously the reason is because probably when they made the original movies, they probably thought Obi-Wan was his master until they came up with the idea of Qui-Gon Jinn. But I think the in-universe canon explanation for this is that Yoda was his master on his exile to Tatooine because he taught him how to become a Force Ghost. But yeah, I'd really love to see him training to become a Force Ghost, and kind of reach into the spiritual side of the Force and communicate with Qui-Gon Jinn. That'd be really cool. So yeah, that's why we need an Obi Wan Kenobi anthology film. I'll do more videos about more characters I think we need a spin-off movie for. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment if you want. There'll be more content coming up soon, and I will see you all next time.